What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do?
All right, so now let's talk about something that's maybe it's still a serious thing, but maybe a lot less serious as violence in the workplace, and that's workplace theft. Okay, as security, you're also responsible for safeguarding property, people's health and safety, but you're also responsible for loss prevention, right? And so the workplace, it's a funny thing because it's ambiguous, right? There's a lot of stuff. I mean, we can go from cyber theft, people stealing intellectual property, which might be on a whole different level of security, all the way to somebody stealing a couple of pens and pencils and some paper every day, right? So you have to pay attention to these things. There are times when a person feels justified. And that's how most people get into these situations, because they create this mental state that they actually deserve what they're taking. It could even be, things that you may not even think about. It's not just stealing. It could be postage, right? So they have their personal letter and they're going to put a stamp on it, send it out. Okay, we're talking pennies. Some companies might say, hey, that's part of the working here. You can do that. Most companies realize that it's a slow leak. When I owned a restaurant, and I like to use this because it kind of ties in the slow leak of loss. One of the things that most people don't realize. Okay, so when you go in and you get a drink, you order a adult beverage, or you order a soda, the waitress or the bartender, server will put a napkin right on the table, on the bar, and you put your drink on it, right? And every month, let's say you spend, and this was something I did, $1,500 a month in napkins, right? In paper goods. So if that person goes and instead of putting one down, they just grab a stack of 2 or 3 of them, put them down, what just happened to that $1,500 a month, right? At $1,500, when you start stacking 2, just became $3,000. If you're one of those people who grab 4 or 5 and you put it down, and I say one of those people is like a server or bartender, you are creating an expense. Or another thing that as a restaurant owner, as a bar owner, used to drive me crazy, and it still does when I go out to restaurants. If someone spills a little something, the person grabs those bev naps and they take it and they start wiping up when they have a towel over their shoulder or whatever. So where I'm going with this story is just a personal experience of trying to show you how it may seem small, but a stamp 2 or 3 times a week for whatever it is that you're doing, and you have 2,000 employees, 500 employees, and they're all doing that. Let's quickly do a little math here, okay? So how much are stamps nowadays? I have no idea. Are they 40 cents, 45 cents? I don't know. I'm going to say 45 cents. 45 cents. And, you do it 3 times, right? Okay, so that's $1.35. Let's say you have, I'm going to bring it even lower. Let's say you have 200 employees. And of the 200, not all of them do it. Maybe 25% of the people do it, right? So that's 50 times 50 equals. Now we're going to times that times 52 weeks in a year. That's $3,500, right? $3,500 if just a handful of your employees send out something, twice a week. So it is something that, and then that's just stamps. Okay, we didn't talk about the envelopes, we didn't talk about the pencils, we didn't talk about the paper, we didn't talk about all the different things. And we're not even getting into, I'm just talking about the simple stuff that you may not think about, because I'm sure when I said, hey, employee theft, I'm thinking monitors and computers, or let's say you work at a distribution center and you happen to sell, what do you call it, jeans. I was trying to think of a word for, like name brand jeans. Put a couple of pair of those in your bag every day, every 2 days, every 3 days, and all 50 of the warehouse workers do that. Next thing you know, you're talking about thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, and each employee goes, man, it's just a pair of jeans. And while those jeans might retail for $100, Well, the company probably only paid $25, $30 for them. But having said that, when it's all said and done, it adds up, and those little things can put a company out of business. I have worked for companies that make you bring, that don't allow you to bring bags into work. I have seen companies, never worked for one, that literally have people, you got to agree to be pat down every time you leave. They're not going to allow you to just walk out the door with their product. So depending on what level of theft we're talking about, whether it's a pencil or whether it's you sell computers at your company and a couple of those computers go out the back door, or TVs, or I mean, God forbid if you're working for a distribution center for a chain store like Walmart or Target. I mean, God knows the stuff that's going through TVs, monitors, computers, everything, earbuds, phones, and there's always somebody there who will divert a couple of those pieces of equipment to their side. So let's talk a little bit about how we either stop this from happening, or signs of it happening. So all right, so let's kind of touch on how to reduce the risk of employee theft, and maybe a little bit why employees do it. But security and surveillance strategies have improved tremendously in recent years because of the advances in technology. Multi-use surveillance equipment and less conspicuous apps and different types of, we've talked about this. Matter of fact, we have a lesson and a video on just all the new technology. It's really cool. And it makes it a little bit easier for the employer to keep an eye on the employee. Employees theft is on the rise. I think as there's more technology, then you have more people that greater incentive to take something if it's something that is more valuable, right? Okay, so according to the data in the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, 75% of employees have admitted stealing from their employers at least once. 38% admit to stealing from employers at least twice. The FBI refers to employee theft as the fastest growing crime in the U.S., costing businesses about 7% of their expected margin. Wow. The problem becomes so dire for some businesses hit with employee theft that about 33% are pushed into bankruptcy due to losses from theft or fraud. Wow. Okay. So I don't know how you feel about that, but here's the thing. I've owned several businesses, and that hits me. And I owned a bar, probably my favorite business that I own, a sports bar. And theft was so prevalent, it was constantly a source of stress for me. And so when I see this and I hear about businesses going out, now I'm gonna talk to you guys, and you might be like, what's a little this, a little that. So as a security officer, you say, it's always, if it ain't yours, then who really cares, right? Who really cares that that something's being stole if it's not yours, if you're not losing anything? But if you put yourself in the spot of a person who spent God knows how long, not all people, but some people spend their entire lives trying to get up enough money to start a business and then go out of business because the people they hired to work for them, paid to do a service, give them health benefits, everything, stole it from them. So that actually is a source of it makes me upset. So anyway, you might look at it a little differently. I hope you don't. But anyway, employee theft may be difficult to detect because the perpetrator is an insider familiar with the system. Okay, so they work for you, know how things work. Additionally, these employees have access to keys and parts of your business that obviously might be more difficult for someone from the outside to break into. And here's the other thing. If you consider the person a friend, or they've worked with you for a while and you like them and you want to support them, and that's the ones that hurt the most, right? The guys that you brought your kids to work and they like, oh, hey buddy, how's it going? Hey, look at my trick here and whatever. And then they turn around and steal from you. So, anyway, and this goes not just, we talked about, the warehouse, we talked about people. What about accounting and finance? What about embezzlement, right? What about people actually diverting money from the business account to their personal account? So these are things that, definitely want to consider. Understanding the motives behind employee theft. In most companies, employees undergo a stringent screening process, including background checks, employee history, and credit checks, and it's designed to try to exclude the people who would do stuff like that. But listen, people can go through this process, and quite frankly, you can have a good background and still be a unsavory person. But here's some signs, okay? Drastic life changes, right? I think that's pretty obvious. If you start seeing somebody walking around with a Rolex on their wrist, and then it could be, like they live in a new house, they're taking vacations, right? Okay. What about living beyond their pay scale? I think that kind of falls in the same category because your lifestyle changes when you living outside of your pay range. But opportunity. Employees may start out with petty amounts because the opportunity presents itself, and then get a little bit more greedy as it goes on. Customers may forget to claim their changes, or bookkeeping may find an opportunity to adjust the books without being noticed. All that stuff, is part of the theft. Addictions, obviously, drugs have a lot to do with this stuff. It has, drugs, boy. I mean, you'll steal from your mom and dad if you addicted to drugs. So you definitely want to keep an eye on if you have employees who are noticeably changing due to what you might perceive as a drug problem. Okay, bad apples who pass the screening process. Again, I tell you all the time, people pass that screening process does not mean that they're good people. I mean, just because you've never been arrested don't mean you haven't committed a crime. Revenge, perceived slight, and I talked about this. A lot of these employees who do steal think, you know what, I don't get paid enough to do this job. I deserve to take some of this money from this accounting, or someone does a return and somehow or another you give them, you can, I said return, but I'm thinking like that somehow you have your buddy come and somehow they keep the product but you return the money, things like that. There's a lot of shady ways people figure out to defraud the business. So in general, there you go. We have some reading material in the lesson, so please click on the links, read about it. It tells you more detail. It tells you more things to look for, different types of theft, whether it's from the warehouse or accounting. All this stuff will help you be a better security police officer. And maybe this ain't quite a military thing, but the military always dealing with something, even though it may not be. But believe me, there's stuff that goes on in the military that's shady too. So it's no different than life. Anyway, for Job Corps, this is Petty Off Romero. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like button. I like that. It just shows me that you guys are paying attention. And hey, also I want to point out, you notice I still have the big microphone. I can do the radio thing, and but I got the new collar microphone, right? So we don't have the big thing in front of me. I like it. All right, for Job Corps, Petty Officer Romero. We'll see you on the next video.
Tell me what you wanna do, what you gonna do. Yeah, bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?